On today's episode of Unscripted, can the church ever be wrong? Was Hitler a Christian? And that impression you had, was that God talking to you? Or was that last night's pizza? Hang in there, you're going to love this episode. Welcome back to another groundbreaking episode of Unscripted, brought to you by the good people at the Adventist Review. And I tried to get some of the good people on the set today, but I had to settle for Jonathan.
Unfortunately, I'm so sorry.
Jonathan is one of the good people. He beat me to the review, been there longer than me. Jonathan, what is it that you do for the Adventist Review? Why do people know you at the Adventist Review?
Well, that's a good question. I'm one of the assistant editors at the Review, so you do outrank me. However, I do have the coat with the logo, and you do not.
Yeah, I know. It's like, I've been here, 6 months already?
Yeah.
And I can't get a logo on my coat. Jonathan has one. I just want everyone to notice how it works around here.
It's kind of like the Joseph and his brother situation. I'm Joseph, and you get to be angry, but I'm glad Egypt is far away.
So at the end of the show, I'll be throwing him in a pit and selling him to Midianite traders.
That's how we do it.
That's how we do it around here. It's like, okay, Justin has a logo, you've got a logo.
We'll get there.
Like, what do I have to do to earn my logo?
Yeah, it's a righteousness by work situation here, definitely.
What is it that you do at the Adventist Review that got you that pretty logo on your coat?
So one of the blessings I have is I get to edit your articles and many other articles.
I am so sorry about that.
Yep. So it's on me if there's mistakes.
Yep.
But
and if there's bad theology, Jonathan wove it in.
Probably.
Yeah.
But no, I get to edit articles. I get to write articles. And as as it usually happens when you're a millennial, you also get to do social media. So I kind of oversee the social media work. I don't do all of it myself.
Tell me a little bit about where people can find us on social media.
Yeah, I mean, if you go to Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and you just search for Adventist Review, you will find us. And we're also on X, and we're technically on TikTok and some of other places too, but we're kind of getting started in those places.
Which version of TikTok? Some countries have pulled away from the official TikTok. But
no, but on the standard social media outlets, you will find us, and there you'll find your daily content from the Adventist Review. All of our content will be visible there in short format, and then we're linking to the full article. WhatsApp, we have WhatsApp channels.
Yep.
And you can find that.
In multiple languages, right?
Multiple languages, and that will grow as well. And that's free. You can get all of our content for free digitally, and that's a huge blessing in this day and age. So we're glad to support the church in that way. Through the digital platforms and channels.
Right, this is kind of like the official voice of the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
Yeah. The
Adventist Review actually predates the Seventh-day Adventist Church itself.
Right.
Founded 1849. Yep. No social media in 1849.
Correct.
Jonathan didn't have a job back then. But when social media was invented, then...
Yeah, of course, we're trying to be where the people are. And but I want to give one more plug for what I do. One of the things I get to oversee is art. We believe that art has an important role to play in the mission of the church. We believe artists should be at the forefront of mission, making our message beautiful and appealing and interesting to people. And so we have dedicated in the print issue every now and then a section that showcases Adventist art for the sake of art, for the sake of what it how it can be used, in the mission of the church, and to give artists, and we have many of them in the church, a place to be to be appreciated. Often they get utilized or abused and just taken for granted. And I think artists have a special place in the mission.
Yeah, they really do. As a matter of fact, I was sitting in a class being taught by an Adventist professor who had once been wanting to become a comic book artist. And he was covering Daniel 7, and he pulled out his drawings. It's like, wow. Wow. And we do. As an evangelist, I relied on art.
Absolutely.
But I kind of took it for granted. I'm not sure I could always name who did that for me.
Right.
But they won souls every bit as much as I did, because comprehension rises, people can visualize, and so on.
Yes.
What drove you to want to, I know that you kind of spearheaded including art in the Adventist Review repertoire. What kind of drove that for you?
Well, it's kind of my passion. I come from a country of artists in many ways, from Austria, and so growing up there, you're kind of surrounded by art and music, and these things are very much part of culture. And so I've always enjoyed it, and I'm a musician myself. I like design, and so that has kind of brought that passion into my life, and I've I've tried to bring it to the review. Not to say that the review hasn't done this before. They have included art before, and it's absolutely part of their work. But now we're trying to give it a stronger emphasis, and so it's a blessing.
Now, someone watching is an artist. You're an artist, and you want to use your art for the Lord.
Yeah.
I mean, people submit things all the time. There isn't a guarantee that what you submit gets used because we just have a flood. But if somebody did want to show you what it is they do, poetry, painting, whatever, you know,
sculpture,
how would they reach out?
Yeah, you can email us at art@adventistreview.org, or you can go to our link tree and find us on the links there as well. And that way you can get in touch with us. You can submit your art, you can get on a newsletter and all these things, and we'll connect with you. Okay,
so how do you end up coming from Austria to sitting on the other side of the wall from my office?
Airplane took me from...
I understand the concept.
No, so basically, I did grow up...
You didn't swim then?
No, you know, that would have been an amazing endurance. No, but I had the privilege of studying theology. Well, it's a long story, but essentially I got an invitation to come to the United States about 12 years ago, and it was supposed to be a short-term thing to serve with campus ministries and with a local church that was focusing on that, and that turned into being an invitation to be a pastor. Okay. So I pastored for a couple of years, and about 7 years ago, I got a call to the General Conference out of the blue, completely unexpected. No idea how it happened to this day.
Nobody has any idea how this happened, really.
And I served with the ministerial associations, so serving pastors and leaders around the world. And then about 2 years ago, the Adventist Review knocked on the door, and God arranged things in a way that it made sense for me to join the review.
And I'm glad you're there.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're there.
It's a blessing.
And the 2 years must be why you got the coat with the
Probably,
logo.
yes.
You know, just like, what do I have to do? What do I have to do? Let's talk about some of the content that showed up this week online. One in particular I'm thinking about, Jonathan, and again, there is the print magazine, everybody, and if you're not subscribed to this, my question for you is, why? Are you a good person or not? I mean, subscribe to this. In all seriousness, this is the voice of the Adventist Church. You want to know what's going on. You want to know what kind of mission endeavors are taking place. You want to find encouragement. You want to learn our history. You want to deepen yourself in our message or in your outreach. This is your best bet. And you want to go to adventistreview.org. Scroll down. We'll try and make it easier in time, but sign up for this. This ought to be coming to your house every single month. But also, every day, every week, there's additional content. There's piles and piles of content online.
Yes, in fact, Justin always says, our boss, make adventistreview.org your starting page when you open your internet browser. Start your day on a positive note, plugged into the mission of the church, into what really matters. News is one thing, out there of the world and all the craziness that happens, but why not start your day, instead of with outrage, start it with, on a positive spiritual note. And
I agree with that. And one of the reasons I wanted to come to the review, I enjoyed the invitation, was the positive aspect. Look, there's a lot of voices that critique the church, throw stones from the side. They don't participate, they don't help, they just throw stones.
Right.
The review, on the other hand, is focused on mission. I love the new emphasis of the church for the next quinquennium, grounded in the Bible, focused on mission. That really is what the Adventist Review is. Absolutely. On a positive note. It doesn't mean they're afraid to tackle things. I think you helped with a powerful infographic a month ago showing, here's where we're succeeding and where we're not. It's honest, but without bashing, without stone throwing.
We're trying to be constructive.
Yeah, not to be an accuser of the brethren,
for sure.
But, a team player.
Yeah.
So, now, in that light, this feature article by Audrey Anderson, a vice president here at the GC, love Audrey, could the church be wrong? What was your impression as you went through that one?
I love the idea of that article. I was very curious what she would say as a vice president, and she served as a leader in a Trans-European division and other places. And her take was very interesting. She says, yes, absolutely, the church can be wrong. There can be mistakes happen. Human beings are human beings. We all make mistakes. And so that's just a reality on this side of heaven. With that said, God still cares about his people. God still wants to use the church. The way I see this personally is like, is God willing to work with me? Yes. Is he willing to utilize me in his mission? Yes. Do I have flaws? Absolutely. Am I a sinner? Yes. And yet, God in his grace is willing to work with me. If he's willing to do that for me, he's also willing to do that for us as a collective group.
Right.
And so yes, mistakes happen and so on, but we have, procedures, we have ways to tackle when mistakes happen, or when there are issues, or when we receive, new light, so to say, when we have a better understanding of a doctrine, or when we have to change policy. There are ways to do that, and sometimes it takes time. It's a big ship to move, but I really appreciated her take on this, not declaring, no, we make no mistakes, and it's always, like this blanket over us. That's not true. I think very much in this building, there's a very much an understanding. Like, we progress, we're organized, but we come together for a general conference session. We come together for annual council meetings, and we tackle questions. We wrestle with topics. We disagree openly, but brotherly. And it's a beautiful process that allows for freedom of thinking and freedom of Bible study, and for the Holy Spirit to kind of massage the church into where He wants us to go.
I agree. I really appreciate it. I think she even touches on the fact, like, hey, yeah, I know you think a policy is wayward. Maybe it made sense 50 years ago, and you find the process slow, and slow's not always bad. It's frustrating for me. I'm impatient.
Yes, me too.
I've got Dutch-German blood. Things must happen now. But slow's not always bad, because you can make tragic mistakes being hasty, and lots of minds really do help. Here's the observation I came away with. She has a few Ellen White quotes. The church has sadly failed to meet the expectations of a Redeemer.
Yes.
And I know some of you are sitting there, yes, I can point to specific people and examples. I know that they failed. I've learned over the years to get very slow about pointing a finger, and I appreciate the tone this article's written in, because, there wouldn't even be a church if we weren't all broken.
That's so true.
It's a home for broken sinners being mended. Most of the Bible, a significant percentage of the Bible is addressed to broken church members, Old Testament, New Testament. Paul's letters, read them. It's like, you think, people often say, well, the church was in its purity in the first century. Was it? Have you read Paul's letters? Have you read what he was dealing with in Corinth? And then I've asked some people, if you're ready to point fingers at what you think is wrong, I just want you to consider one question. If an angel were to show up at your home tonight and give you a Bible study on what you still have wrong, how long do you think that would take? Honestly. And not very long, but you could see the panic in their eyes. I panic when I think about that. It's like, okay, slow down, Shawn. I often think I'm right. Or I think I'm interpreting Scripture or the spirit of prophecy right, but people with more experience, broader wisdom, have sat down and showed me, you're being a little narrow here, and you missed something.
Yes.
So I appreciate the tone of this.
And I appreciate that our church allows for conversation. It allows for people to voice their opinion and to voice their concerns that they may have, or the change that they want. There are channels and ways to do that. And that is something that you do not find in all denominations or other churches or other belief systems. So I think we have a pretty solid system. Could there be improvement? Probably. We're working on it. And the best way to make a change is to be involved and to engage in it. And I think that way the Lord brings us together also and creates unity amongst us.
Be involved is an important concept, and that kind of is implied in Audrey's article. This is an important article, by the way, AdventistReview.org. Could the church be wrong? Take the time, please, to read this and contemplate it, and let it set you back on your heels a little bit. It set me back on my heels a little bit.
Yeah.
One question I jotted, I scribble on articles. That's why it's in my iPad. It's like, oh, that's a good thought. I wrote here in the margin, ask yourself, why am I being defensive? You don't agree with something and you feel defensive. Maybe analyze why you feel defensive instead of sad.
Right.
Why do we feel defensive? Is there something wrong in here that makes me defensive about my position? Or am I afraid that I'm wrong about something?
Yeah. In this day and age, I feel like society and technology has created this illusion that everyone has a pulpit, okay? And while everyone's opinion matters, it has brought us to a point where we may have the danger of thinking, okay, my opinion must be the one that is accepted everywhere because everyone online agrees with me. My friends agree with me, and so that can be challenging. I remember when I was pastoring a church, and Audrey talks about don't sweat the small stuff.
Yeah.
And I had to think of this situation where we were doing a remodeling of the sanctuary, and already the comments about the carpet color, all this stuff came up. And that business meeting where we're talking about this was the most well-attended business meeting I've ever been to in that context.
It's amazing what gets full attendance.
Yes.
And evangelism planning doesn't.
Yes, correct.
That says something too.
But I will never forget one of my elders stood up and with a very spiritual and a good authoritative voice spoke to the members and said, listen, we have a design committee. These are people who, their expertise is these things, choosing color, choosing style, and so on. Let us trust them and let's live with the results. Let's live with it's not that big of a deal. You may think in the moment that's a big deal, and this goes for many issues. Is it really worth dying on that hill, if it's blue or red or whatever the situation may be? So I appreciated her balance, and I think it's an article that's very important for us.
Yeah, I know. We always go to the carpet and the organ as an example. I think she even mentions the carpet in there because it's our favorite.
Yes.
But yeah, I think what, for me, it helped me remember is this. When I lay on my deathbed, if the Lord hasn't come, and I think back, which battles will I be glad that I fought in the last 5 minutes of my life? I've seen people but my grandmother donated that organ. Yeah, well, the organ's broken and it's time to go. And they're deeply hurt because there's a little gold plaque on it with the grandmother's name and so on. It's like, okay, when you're on your deathbed in the last 5 minutes, is that organ going to bother you, or is your relationship with Jesus going to be foremost on your mind? Is your own record going to be? And don't sweat the small stuff. It all looks big in the heat of the moment. Right. Watch social media. Right? Watch people start fighting on social media. Everything becomes a mountain.
Absolutely.
And it's a good reminder. Not everything is a mountain. Not every policy is a mountain.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. There was another article, if I can bring it up, that I found interesting. I got the privilege of editing it. You wrote it.
Oh, no. Here we go.
Shawn has a slight obsession with World War II and a certain Austrian painter turned dictator.
Only one of us is an Austrian on this set. Only one of us is an Austrian.
Right. Yeah. You wrote an article called Was Hitler a Christian?
Right.
And I wanted to ask you, is that a question people are asking? And why are people asking that question?
Let me tell you where that came from. Number one, World War II is kind of big on my own family's horizon. My father grew up in a Nazi-occupied village. My grandfather was in the camps on one side. The other was in the Dutch resistance on the other. I found a story a while ago. He held off a German I don't know how big the group of German soldiers was, by himself behind a concrete fence post for I don't know how long.
Wow.
And so we were hiding people. My father, I think, got sent to live with relatives and so on. It looms pretty big on our family's horizon. Right. My grandmother was German, got out before the war, went and married a Dutchman, but I noticed that in my father's generation and older, when she would speak and they would hear the German accent, it was a trigger for them emotionally, because they had planted beets in a labor camp, or they had lost people in that war. So, the story looms big, but this idea...
Don't bring me to your family gathering.
No, we can't have an Austrian accent there. No, we're pretty broad. I've got a lot of family in Germany still, not any in Austria that I know of. The subject looms large, as it does for a lot of Europeans, especially European immigrants to the New World. But the idea that Hitler was a Christian, I watch online debates. I don't sleep. I'm an insomniac, and I get on Twitter. You won't find me on Twitter. You'll never identify me. I'm anonymous. But I watch people start fighting, and somebody will say, look, atheism is a killer. Look at an official atheist state. Look at 20th century communism. 100 million dead by the end of the 20th century, dead because of an ideology. Absolutely true. But then the atheists get the little defensive, but don't forget Hitler was a Christian. And that comes up 9 times out of 10. Yeah. So let's ask that question. Was it the Bible? Was it Christianity that opened the death camps? Right. And my answer in this article is no. The church isn't squeaky clean. We know there were complicit churches who didn't take a brave stand. We know all of that happened. We know that Hitler used Christian terminology because he's addressing a primarily Christian divided nation, Protestant and Catholic, Lutheran and Catholic.
But what I found amazing, and I did not know about this, is you showed, and this is an interesting article because it's very deep and complex, and you can tell you had a lot of sources and so on that you used to look at this, but you showed it as a neo-pagan influence, Nietzschean, occult influences that kind of formed the Nazi party and ideology And so, like, talk a little bit about that. Where does it all come from?
I find it interesting, and I forget where it is. I figured you might ask me today, and I was trying to find the Ellen White quote. But somewhere there is a spot where Ellen White talks about theosophy being an issue in the last days, and I think it's in Prophets and Kings, page 210. Look it up.
Yeah.
As she's talking about spiritualism, she mentions theosophy, which starts you digging. Madame Blavatsky, Helena Blavatsky, was the teacher of theosophy. It was a distinctly, it was raised on the ashes of kind of medieval alchemy. Alchemy wasn't just about turning lead into gold. Alchemy was about spiritualism handed down from Egypt to the Greeks, to Arabia, and then those who were in esoteric cults brought it back to Europe. And it was distinct spiritualistic paganism. And Madame Blavatsky taught what ancient pagans did. When we die, your soul leaves your body, goes back to the great mind of the universe, you're reabsorbed, and so on. But then she tells a story. She said, creation is a mistake, very Greek thinking. And she said there are all these root races. I think she named 7. And we're going to go through all of these. There were the Lemurians. Some of you have seen this in conspiracy theory. And then she gets all the way down to, the Hyperboreans. They lived went on ice-free polar caps and so on. A lot of pagan mythology, a lot of spiritualistic mythology, but then she gets down to, and then there were the Atlanteans. And the Atlanteans worshipped a serpent, and so they were flooded. They were destroyed in a deluge. Well, okay, where's that story coming from? Right. A few of them escape. They go to Tibet as ascended masters and hide up in the mountains. Then she said the next root race after that will be the Aryans. And she used the swastika as a symbol for all of these cycles we go through.
Fascinating.
And you read the article. I put a lot of detail in there that we don't really have time for today.
Right.
But out of that, theosophy in the late 19th century becomes a big deal in Germany.
Yeah.
So does spiritualism, seances. What was going on in America was going on in Europe.
Right.
Out of that, I think it was Guido von List or one of the others, develops a new one called Ariosophy. It's theosophy for the Aryan race. And then out of that comes a political party. I think the
Nazi Party.
Well, there was one more step in between. I threw it there in the article.
Oh, like the German Workers' Party or something.
Yeah, Workers' Party, Theosophical Society, and so on, and then eventually becomes the Nazi Party. Was Hitler a theosophist? No, I can't prove that. But take a look at his habits. He loved Wagner. What did Wagner write about? Parsifal, the Rings of the Nibelungen, and so on. It's Teutonic mythology. It's telling these old pagan stories. And the idea that the Aryans are the master race, the symbolism, the pagan symbolism, it all shows up. Now, did Christians misbehave? Yeah, we even know, people often say Luther was the source of anti-Semitism in Germany. Yes and no. He had hoped the Jews would convert, and when they didn't, he got mad and wrote some really unfortunate things about the Jews. He did. We are not clean. I don't want to give that impression. We're not clean. But the primary influence was pagan spiritualism, and that's what drives the idea that we can get rid of races that are not this new root race, the Aryans.
So we see that when myth replaces truth, cruelty follows.
Every time.
Every time, yeah, and you see it to this day. I mean, it's not a new idea.
Yeah. So that one for me is personal.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate it. It was a great read and a very interesting history connections that I was not aware of, even as an Austrian.
Yeah, and there's a Ninevite connection, because by the time we get to the end of the 19th, I'm giving away half the article, but
yes, pretty much.
Read it. I'm not perfect. I probably got some details wrong, but the history, I'd encourage you to dig into it.
Yeah.
The Nazis themselves, Himmler, I think it was, led an expedition to Tibet. People, why would he go to Tibet? They're looking for these Atlantean ascended masters to teach them. It's like, oh, it all starts to make sense, spiritualism. And then when you see Ellen White say in the last days, spiritualism and theosophy together become a problem, it's like, oh my goodness.
And that combined with nationalism, a very interesting dynamics. Yeah,
absolutely. So that's what drove me. It's like, okay, Christians aren't entirely guilt-free. We never are. We're a broken people, which we've talked about today, right? We make mistakes. And some Christians made mistakes. And yes, Hitler used Gott mit uns, and that had been there since World War I, so I'm not sure we can pin that to him. We're not clean, but we're not the primary influence that led to the camps.
Right.
The camps were an outgrowth of some of this pagan spiritualism, and they were built in spite of the teachings of Christ. That's the difference.
Exactly.
That's the difference, yeah. And one more. We got one more really good one. I mean, they're all good. You got to get online, AdventistReview.org. Pizza or Providence? You got to read one called Pizza or Providence.
Yes.
Tease us a little bit with that one, Jonathan.
That one's written by Wes Peppers. He's one of the speakers for this written.
Hey, Wes.
Yeah, I love Wes.
Yep.
And basically, he talks about his own experience. He had a dramatic conversion at 22. And how after his conversion, he was blessed to spend like 2 years in intense Bible study and prayer and outreach. And he just had a powerful experience. But then he talks about how even when you have powerful experiences with God, and even if you have your theology right, you can still fall into certain pitfalls in your Christian walk. And he kind of goes into different areas. One of them that I really find interesting is the idea of over-spiritualizing things.
Oh, that was really good.
Yeah,
oh, yeah, I love that.
It's on the one hand, like, yes, everything is spiritual. You walk with the Lord and so on. But we live in a world of cause and effect. There are things that happen. Yes, there's a great controversy, but not everything is necessarily an attack of the devil or a blessing from heaven. And so he kind of talks about that, especially you may meet people who they instead of maybe looking at the word, they look at how they're feeling and they see, well, today I feel this way and this means I'm impressed by the Lord to this or that. But it may be just the pizza from the night before. You know, so that's his point with that title. And so that's something that I've seen often. And I've been in a temptation to follow myself. Like, maybe this was an attack from the devil. And it may be. I mentioned to you earlier, some say, okay, my flight is delayed or my flight is canceled. It's an attack from the devil. Or it is a blessing from God because maybe it protected me from something. And whereas all those things can be true, we have to be careful to make every little instance of life a matter of grave importance in the great controversy narrative that's going on. I think we are a small speck in that whole story, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I remember a lady one time actually phoned me and said, a big flock of crows. And out on the West Coast, you get these massive thousands of crows. Just flew over my house. What do you think it means? What is God trying to tell me? I said, I think God might be, and I don't want to interpret for you, but I think God might be telling you that the crows needed to go somewhere else. I was like, what? I said, it doesn't mean something to me. I said, maybe, but don't try to read. I mean, that's not much different than reading tea leaves and tarot cards.
Correct.
Not everything. Sometimes things just happen. I really appreciated this because I think some people live in fear because of that attitude. That's why the Bible is our guide, not my gut.
Correct. Very good, yeah. And he also talked about gumption gumption and presumption, two pitfalls of where on the one hand, I know God's will, but I'm going to do it my way. And on the other hand, it's like I'm making my way and let's say that's God's way, right? So there's danger. The longer you are in the spiritual connection or in religion, if you're not staying humble and surrendered to the will of God and close to Jesus, there's a danger of becoming prideful or secretly prideful with those kind of attitudes, if that makes sense. So
it does.
You're like, oh, well, I can do this my way, or I'm going to make my way God's way. Is a pitfall that we need to stay away from.
Let God write the script. Don't write it for him. All right, that's the time we've got for this week. The print edition this month and new print edition coming right here. Get your print edition. Go to AdventistReview.org to see what else we've got. I really appreciate you joining us this week at the Adventist Review, your best source of information for what's going on in the world church today. Until next time.